How many of you can say with absolute certainty, I am in love with my life? There was a time in my life I was not in love with my life. And I'm coming to you in this video from a friend of mine's beautiful home. How's that for a view? There was a point in my life when I was just existing. Truthfully, I was just surviving. I was in the part of my career, my 20 plus year neuroscience career, where I was completely burned up. I didn't really recognize the symptoms of that burnout. I loved the work that I did. And most importantly, I loved the difference that I made in the lives of patients on a daily basis. It was my privilege to work next to brain surgeons who were removing tumors from brains, who were straightening deformed spines. I ran sophisticated imaging and software equipment for those surgeons. And the two of us would stand side by side in front of the computer system that my company produced, and we would map out a plan together about how to best achieve the goal of straightening the spine or removing the tumor from the brain. How's that for rewarding work? It really was. And the problem with that work is that you end up working someone else's schedule just about 24/7. And this had been going on at that point for 17 years. So I was running on cortisol, I was running on adrenaline, I was running on caffeinated drinks, and all day long I would build up this incredible tension and drive in myself, focused and to be worthy of being in that room with these incredibly bright and gifted surgeons. And then I'd get home at night and I couldn't turn my brain off. So the formula that I moved to was to drink anywhere between, 1 to 3 glasses a night to try to turn my brain down. I didn't drink to get drunk because you cannot be hungover in the operating room and function properly. But I did this every night for quite a few years because I had no idea how to turn my brain down. I had no idea I was in burnout. I had no idea about how I dealt with any of it, because the lie I told myself was that there is no other work I can do that will give me this sense of purpose and satisfaction. And it took the worst day of my entire career, a 17-hour day in the operating room, to break that habit, to break that cycle. And what I started to understand then was, what if I start by at least kicking this garbage out of my diet? So I made the decision, a very powerful decision at the time, I had no idea what it would lead to remove alcohol from my diet. I recognized that I had this gray zone drinking kind of habit. I didn't drink to get drunk. I didn't need rehab. I didn't need a 12-step program, but I was really stuck about, why do I keep turning to this habit? And so everything that I learned about that, this was 4 years ago now, I've been able to translate and build a program to help other women do the same. That was just the start. What ended up happening, because I had that horrible, awful day, was I started figuring out and gathering the courage to take one small step at a time around, what's the kind of life I do want? What kinds of things, what kinds of skills do I have that I love, that I have these skills, and how would it translate somewhere else in my life? And what you see in front of you today, 4 years later, is the result of a method I now call Revive that I used for myself. And over the past 4 years, I've coached approximately 250 men and women to do what I've done. And that's just the beginning. We think we're kicking alcohol out of our diet. We think that we're getting scrolling out of our lives. What I do is I help men and women identify whatever gray zone area they are in right now that's keeping them from moving forward and falling in love with their lives. And once we identify that, we put my 12-week program into action to retrain the brain to identify what's truly important to you, what gives you purpose right now at this stage of your life, and how you take everything that you've gathered and learned and experienced and bring it forward to this next chapter of your life. That's what we do together. Now, on to this kind of life. Because I had the courage to face that gray zone area in my life, it started revealing other gray zones in my life where I was keeping myself stuck. And as a result, one of the areas was my health. So 2.5 years ago, I made the decision that by the time I turned 60, that I want to be in the best shape of my life. I'm 6 months away from achieving that goal. And I've never been this person before. I've never been the person who goes to the gym 4 days a week, puts in all the reps. I'm there for an hour at a time. I go out and I get my cardio in. I get my sunlight in. I eat incredibly well. I eat nutrient-dense food. That is not who I used to be. But everything I learned about kicking alcohol out of my diet, I was able to apply to this part of my life, which is working on my fitness. And the other area that I get to the privilege of working on now is growing my business and growing my ministry. So as a result of walking away from that life where I lived everybody else's schedule, I now have the life where I create my own schedule. It's filled with purpose. This is the most rewarding work of my life, helping men and women identify the areas where they're stuck and helping them rewire and retrain their brains to move forward and to fully step into who God's created them to be at this time in their life. Because I made that decision, I now get to live a life like this. I don't know if you can see the dogs in the pool. I'm getting to enjoy the time with the dogs as well. And I've never been able to live this much of my life in what we call in neuroscience the parasympathetic state of my nervous system. Your nervous system has two parts, parasympathetic and sympathetic. You can think of them as powerful, parasympathetic, or you can think of them as primal, sympathetic, fight or flight. And what my clients discover for themselves is when you spend most of your days, most of the day, for a month, years at a time in that part of your nervous system, you have a superpower that you absolutely can create a life that you are absolutely in love with, because I'm living proof. I didn't think it was possible 4 years ago. And lo and behold, when you have the right knowledge, the right mindset, the right faith practice to shore everything up, because the only reason I'm here is because I listened to God. He got my attention with that 17-hour day. He told me, now's the time to do something about it. And I did. If any of this is resonating with you, I want you to leave me some comments. Tell me about where you're stuck in your life. If you're curious about what it looks like to work with me, go ahead and click the link in the description. Schedule a clarity call with me. Let's find out what's important to you. Where are you in your life? Where do you think you're stuck? Sometimes we don't even know what we want. Maybe we can talk about that on the call. And then we'll talk about what it looks like to work with me and to move through my Revive system. I would love to hear from you. And the last thing that I want to leave you with is I believe in you.